Alright, so continuing with our web page, we're now going to add some CSS to this to put a menu bar in the top of our header division here. So currently we just have our placeholder text in our header division. So we have div ID equals header to open the division, just some placeholder text, and then we close the division. So instead of this, we're going to put the content of our menu bar. So I'm just going to make some space, making sure that our open header div tag and our closed div tag line up to make sure that we keep our structure and nesting correct. Now when we make a menu bar, we essentially just create an unordered list. So a list of items, and those items will eventually be the links that take you to different pages. So the way that we create an unordered list is using a UL tag. And then for each list item, we tab in and use the tag LI. Our first list item is going to be home, so this will be the link that takes us back to this page. The second link will be contact, and the third link that I'm going to create here is favorite site. So I'm going to link this to an external website, and these two will be linked to my internal website, so pages I have created. Okay, so let's have a look at what that looks like on the web. And we can see that that's just placed an unordered list inside my header division. So what we can do now is add CSS to that to make it look like a menu bar. And we also need to turn these into clickable items because at the moment it's just text. So I'll start by doing that. Inside each of these list items, we're going to turn this word into an anchor or a hyperlink. So the way that we do that is by using the anchor tag. And then we say href equals and then after the word home, but inside our list item, we're going to close our anchor. So this is essentially a nested item. So we open our list item, we place an anchor in it, and we close our list item. So if we were to be picky, we could actually nest each of these like this so we can see them properly. So now we have an unordered list, list item opening, anchor opening and closing, list item closing, and we'll do the same for contact, and favorite site. And then we close both of those. Okay, so now we have some links, and when I press File Save, we can see that on our website those have become hyperlinks. When I click on them, they actually go nowhere at the moment, they just reload the page. And the reason for that is under this hyperlink reference attribute, I haven't told it where to go when it's clicked. So considering our home page is already built, that's this one, index.html, we can just say in here we want you to open index.html. Now when we double click this, it'll find this index.html document and reload it. For our contact page, we haven't made it yet, but we're going to tell it that it's going to be called contact.html. So when I save this now, when I click on home, it reloads index.html. And when I click contact, it says your file was not found because it's not in the same folder with our index.html yet, but you can see that it is actually going to the right place. It is looking for my scripts file inside my it's looking for my scripts folder inside my www folder for a file called contact.html. So the link is actually working, we just need to make sure we have the destination saved in that www folder. For our third option, we're actually going to make it go to an external website. So all we need to do is type the website in. Like that. So now when I press File Save, although it looks exactly the same, when I click on it, it actually loads the Pinterest website. Okay, so that's how we basically create some links, but now we need to add the CSS to those. Now there's a whole heap of CSS you can add to these depending on what you want your menu bar to look like. So this is where we come to our W3 schools, because this can be really handy. So you can see here I've just gone to Learn CSS and chosen navigation bar from the menu, and it gives me three options here on how I can make menu bars look. So I have a vertical menu bar, and I have two different types of horizontal menu bar that I could choose from. One that's sort of different colours and different rollovers. So considering the space that I have a header division that's running from left to right. I'm going to go with one of my horizontal menu bars. If I scroll down the page, we'll eventually see the heading for horizontal navigation bar. Now you can have a read of this. This website's really great, as in it tells you exactly what each step does. You can have a read of this, but for now I'm going to take this example as is here. So I'm going to take UL, list item anchor, and this final one that's link item, list item anchor hover. And I copy that and paste it to the bottom of my CSS. So you can see here the last thing that I had in my CSS was content L table TD image, which was putting in this these images here, the size of those images, and now I have 4 more pieces of CSS underneath that. I now file, save all, and come back to my live preview, you can see that I now have a working menu bar. Okay, so I really like W3 Schools for this because it gives you the base code, and now we can go in and have a bit of a play with that if we want to. So what I'm going to do is have a look here at this background color option. So if I now change this background color to blue, you can see that it's changing the actual menu bar color to whatever I decide to choose. I liked the grey colour, so I'm going to leave it, but when we come here to link items float left, if I change that to right, you can see that my menu bar jumps to the other side of the page. Under link item anchor, I can actually change my colour here. And you can see that it's actually changing the colour of the text here. So remember, the anchor is the actual word that is displayed in the menu bar. So when we change the colour of our list item anchor, we're actually changing the colour of the words. And I'll just choose aquamarine for now. We can change the alignment of our text within its little area. You can see here that it has padding around it. We can change the width of the padding if we wanted to change the size of our menu items themselves. Okay, so we can adjust that padding so that we can make the buttons kind of appear to be different sizes. And finally, the option that we have here for LIA hover is for this rollover colour that happens that shows my buttons are actually active clickable areas. It's really important that we give feedback to our users by allowing them to know what's interactive. So hovers are a great way to allow them to know that this is something that they can click on. So here, if I change background colour, we should see that when I roll over, oops, save it, when I roll over my menu bar items, I get a different background color. Okay, so that's essentially how you go about creating a simple CSS menu bar. As I said, there are other options that we can do that our W3 schools will help you with. There are many different options for changing the borders, for changing where the borders are sitting, for putting the menu bar fixed at the bottom of the page or fixed at the top of the page. It's a lot here you can have a bit of a play with. The last one that I'm going to take is this little line of code here. So I want to take my list item last child. And I'm going to paste that underneath my CSS. Now in the example that I just copied that from, it says list item last child, border right none. So essentially what that does is it finds the last item in your menu bar and it would remove the border from the right. I don't want to do that as such, I want to do something else. So I'm going to say last child, and I want it to flow to the right. So now what it does is take that last option from our menu bar and puts it to the other side of the page. I may also decide to make the font size smaller. I'm going to leave mine as it is. I'm going to come down here and have a look at this footer menu bar. So at the moment it's the only division we have in our web page that is still empty. So it has some placeholder text in here, so I'm going to get rid of that. Make a bit of space. And in here I'm just going to insert an image. So if we remember, we use our image tag, and we tell it the source of our image. And my source is in the parent folder, then in a folder called scripts, and the script that I would like, sorry, it's not my folder called scripts, it's in a folder called images, and the image that I would like is the only image I haven't used yet, which is this images insta.png. So what that does is it inserts this image, this social media image, into my menu bar. Now at this stage that's obviously very large. It's this image that I've taken off the internet. I haven't resized it at all. It also has this white background that I might want to remove and make transparent if I was leaving my footer a different colour. But I'm going to add some CSS to this to make it look a little bit better, and then we're going to link it to Instagram. So again, we'll start by linking this to Instagram. So what we're going to do is tap that in one more time, and we're going to put an anchor around it. So in the same way that we did for our favourite site, I'm going to say anchor, href, and then put in the website. And then I want to make sure I'm closing that after my image, and that they're all nicely lined up. So now when I save this, I should find that if I come over here and click this, it takes me to the Instagram webpage. Okay, so it's a simple way that we can turn an image into a link. We just use the same two pieces of code we've used before. Ahref makes it a link, and image source obviously tells it what image to display. Alright, so the CSS for this is pretty straightforward. Again, it's similar to all the CSS we've used so far. We just start by telling the CSS where to find the selector we're looking for. So we want to affect this image here. So this image is inside an anchor, which is inside a division called footer. So we'll start with our division, hashtag footer, making sure if we have capital letters, we've used capital letters. If we've spelt them wrong, we need to fix them, they need to look the same. And we say anchor, image. Now I'm going to change the size of this. So So I can come in here and say width 50 pixels, and that's going to change the size of our image. That image is going to stay 50 pixels regardless of the size of our screen when all the other elements of our screen are dynamic. So if we would like to, we can come in here and actually make it a percentage. I'm going to go with 5%. Alright, so I'm going to go with 5% there. So it's a nice sort of small icon size. And I want to change the background color of my footer so I can't see that this image still has a background. So I'm going to come up here to my footer and change that to white. So now that little icon fits nicely in there. Alright, so I have an item in my footer. If I wanted to, if I had more than one item, I could arrange them similarly to the way that I created my little photo gallery up the top. So I could insert a table here. And then inside my table, I'm just going to create one table row, and inside that table row I'm going to have a table data cell for each of the icons that I want to be displayed across the bottom of my page. Inside my first table data, I'm then going to take my that is supposed to be happening inside my footer division, obviously. So inside my footer division I have a table row, and then table data. And I'm going to take my image and place it inside there. Making sure that my tabbing lines up. Okay, so then I could possibly come along here and create as many of those as I would like. So I have 3 of the same image currently. And then we just need to close our table. So I have my div ID footer, table row, table data, anchor, table data, anchor, table data, anchor. Close my table row, close my table, close my footer, close my container, close the body, close the website. And that would be basically all of the HTML I needed. So press save now. You can see that we have 3 icons running across the bottom of the page. But my icons have become very small because they're 10% or so 5% of the width of the table. So let's add some CSS to that table. So this time I'm going to say footer table width 60%. I'm also going to make each of the table data cells $33%, so that they are, as you can see here, there's 50%. And they're 33%. I'm actually going to bring that down to 40%. That looks better. And then I'm going to make my width it's not 180, 80%. Let's bring it down a bit more. And you can keep playing with those sizes until you find the size that you want. So it might even be that we can just make our table smaller and our images bigger to fit. Okay, so you now have these 3 pieces of script that will adjust the holder for the table, the size that each of those icons fits in, and then the actual size of the images inside those data cells. Right, and then the last thing we're going to do is center that table within the footer. So I can come here into my footer table, and I just want to say margin, without a capital, margin auto, so it places a margin on each side of that table. We can see here that I've got this big margin going on. Okay, so I've played around with my CSS, so I've changed the colour of my menu bar. I've put some consistency in the colours I've used in my divisions. I've enlarged the left side so it looks a little bit more balanced than it does when this had too much space around it. I've also removed the height options from my website, so you can see now that I have my content in there. It sort of gets taller as it gets wider, but it doesn't sort of fit lengthways to the size of the screen like it was when I had height at 100%. So before you do this step, it's important to note anyway that you want the template of your website looking how you want it to look. So all of your menus should be working, and any social media links or copyright information you have in your footer should all be working before you do this next step. So I'm going to make this smaller and put it out of the way for a minute so that we can see it on this side of the screen. Now all we need to do to save this is to click on my HTML page. Again, double checking that everything is correct and working how you want it to work. We can File, Save As, and making sure that we are in our scripts folder, we actually want to save this as contact.html. Save. We can see here that I did call it contact with all little letters. So you can see that I have contact open here rather than index.html. When I come back to my website and I click home, I can see that it goes to index.html. When I click contact, it goes to contact.html. And all of my external links are working. So now what I can do is delete the content from this contact.html page, so we're ready to put new content in. So the best way to do this is to make sure that you actually have the contact HTML open. And inside this content L division, we're just going to remove that table. And inside our content right division, we're going to remove all of that content. And again, we'll just put a placeholder sentence into both of those divisions and press save. So you can see now that we have 2 empty divisions ready to put content in, but our menu bars are still all working. If I click on my home button, my home page still has content in both the content left and the content right, but my contact page is empty in those 2 divisions. In our next tutorial, we're going to add a dynamic map and some form elements to our contact page.